So your next chapter is chapter number 7, that is prototyping online components. So here the topics which we are going to look into is getting started with an API, mashing up APIs, scrapping, legalities, writing a new API, Crocodilo, that is a case study with respect to writing a new API, security, implementing API using curl to test, going further, that is next topics, that is real-time reactions, polling, Comet, other protocols like MQ telemetry transport, extensible messaging, and presence protocol, constraint application protocol. So here we are going to look into, in short, what are the different online components which are available and which will help you in the process of prototyping. So let us start. So first, let us understand what do you mean by prototyping online components. So when we talk about prototyping, we are already familiar with this word since we are looking this word since most of the chapters. So let's move to the next part, that is online components. So whenever we are starting with designing of a prototype, we can easily integrate them with different online components, or you can say online options that are available. So basically when I talk about online components, that refers to different APIs, different web services which are readily available online, and you can integrate them with your prototype and you will make your prototype interactive and responsive, because these are the APIs which will help you to make your system interactive in nature. You can make your GUI user friendly, as well as you can attract the people also, those who are using your prototype. So with this online components, whenever you are integrating with your prototype, you are actually coming up with a interactive, or you can say responsive working model that will help you to attract more people. So we have already seen in our chapter number 2 that we had studied the design principles, that whenever you are going for a calm technology or whenever you are going for an ambient technology, what are the different design principles. And these design principles are possible only when you are integrating them with some kind of API. Like if we take an example of Amazon Echo, or if we take an example of Google Home, both are your speech recognition system. So here you're going to use voice APIs, and this voice APIs will take instructions from you, and accordingly they will do the task for you, or they will create an ambience for you. So this basically means like the online components are actually making your system responsive, they are making your system interactive. Another element which have really been helpful in the prototyping process is your sensors and actuators, wherein they are taking information from your environment, giving back information, and this is really helping you to make your model more interactive. Okay. Next, again, we had internet, which has actually add, you can say, a dimension to your communication. You have your networks, which is allowing the devices to interact with them, inform them about the events, gather the information in the real time. So internet has also one of the most important online components which have made things very easier. It has made sure that all your information is being sent from point A to point B, and there is a real-time information sharing. So depending on the type of protocol you are selecting, accordingly the task will be performed in that way. Like if I want acknowledgement, I will go for an TCP/IP protocol. If I don't want acknowledgement, then I'll go for UDP/IP protocol. So this is also part of your online components. So we can say that online components are very much important. They are really helpful for us when we talk about prototyping with respect to online components. And we are looking forward that in near future, your devices with the help of your standardized protocols can speak with each other, with other applications and the computers on your personal network. So now we just have speaking devices. We are looking forward with technology enhancement. There is a possibility that in the coming years we can have devices also that will speak with your network. So all this is possible only when you have your APIs that will help you to do this task. Okay, so basically in one line I'll just conclude that prototyping online components refers to use of APIs, use of web services in the prototyping process that will help you to make your model interactive, user friendly, and responsive in nature. Let's move to the next. Next topic is API. since online components are revolving around API, let us know what do you mean by API. So the full form of API is Application Program Interface. So basically when we talk about APIs, they are set of routines, you can say, or protocols and the tools that are helping you to build software application. So in short, we can term it as API specifies how your software components should interact. So whenever you want to know the design the interaction between your software components, that is possible with the help of APIs. Even APIs are used with programming GUIs, that is your graphical user interfaces. Like in simple terms, you can say that API is a messenger that delivers your request to the provider, and then you are requesting from it, and then the response is given back to you. So over your screens, you can see the diagram there. There is something called as API request, and there is something called as API response. There is a API, and that APIs are connected with the different client machines that can be over your machines, laptops or desktops, over from mobile phones or through messaging. Then there is a request and response. So whatever request is coming will be sent to the server. The server will fulfill the request and it will give you back the results. So that is why APIs can also be termed as a messenger that will deliver your request to your providers. The providers, whatever they are giving back the request, will be given to the APIs, and then it will give the response back to you. So it is also at times referred as request response or request reply API interfaces. Next important part, when we talk about API, there are online components like your web services, APIs, which will help you to do an end-to-end communication. So the web service APIs are your SOAP, your XML, JSON, HTTP, REST. So basically this web services act as an intermediary, you can say, between your client and your server, and they will help you to have an end-to-end communication for whatever information you want to send. So whatever request is received from the client, it will be you can say performed at the intermediary level. Okay, once the response is there, it will be given to the data or data source or server. This data source or server will be again give this request to web service, and then they will give back to the client. So web services which working on different protocols or different APIs, you can say, that is XML, JSON, SOAP, HTTP, REST, and the response is given back to the client. So this is your entire working of API. So when we talk about API, it is your set of routines or protocols that will help you to build your software application. So API can also work as GUI. Like you can take an example of an Apple iOS API that is used to detect touchscreen interaction. So any type of inputs you are giving, then that API will get activated, and according to your inputs, it will give you the response. Similarly, we can have API for all the mobile phones or all the devices, which will take your inputs and accordingly it will give back to you the response. So that is your API. Hope everybody is clear with it. Next, getting started with API. So let us first understand what do you mean by API. So there is an example which I have taken here. That is, for example, if you want to look at a friend's photo on Flickr. Flickr is nothing but an application just like a Facebook, you can say. So you might do the following things. The first step is launch Chrome, Safari or Internet Explorer. Second, search for the Flickr website in Google and click on the link. Step 3, type in your username and password and click the login button. Step 4, look at the page and click on the contacts link. Step 5, click on few or more links to page through the list of contacts till you see the one you want. Step 6, scroll down the page looking for the photo you want and then click on it. Okay, so I just give you a general example. If I tell you that if you want to look at your friend's photo on Flickr application, so what you will do? So you will definitely tell this series of steps from 1 to 6 that this will be my first step, this will be my second step, because we know that whenever we want to do some kind of searching, or whenever you want to do any kind of task over the internet, this is the basic steps to search for. Okay, because we are humans, we know we have a capability to look, we have a capability of thinking, we have a capability of typing and clicking as well. But whenever you are terming it as with respect to a computer or system, it cannot work like us. So for every step, you need to design them. For every series of action and how to respond to them should be trained to the system. Okay, so that is your APIs. Your APIs just will not understand that this will be your step one, this will be your step two, this will be your step three. Every step has to be designed into it. Every step has to be trained or run over this APIs, and then only they can give you result back. So here at the step one, first you have to train your APIs, wherein you will say that the first input will be from any type of browser, which will be of type Chrome, Safari or Internet Explorer. Then you have to train that next sequence of action will be the people will go to any of this browser and they will search for it. Then if they search for it, then what you have to give back. So for every sequence of step, what will be the step and what will be the corresponding response to that, that everything needs to be trained to an API, because it is a system, it is a machine, it is a computer. For each step you need to train them. They are not like us that if we give any problem to them, they will come up with this series of steps to solve the problem. For everything you have to train a system, or you have to train your software components. So similarly, you're also getting started with API here refers to that. For a human, performing the steps will be very easy because you know how you have to go about. But if you talk about a computer, or if you talk about a software components like API, for every sequence of step, you have to design them, you have to train them, and you have to tell them what will be the response to it. So once they have launched the browser, once they search it, the next step will be what? The Flickr website should be loaded. Once the people like website is loaded, it should direct it to the login page where they have to give their username and password. Okay, so every step need to be designed. Every step action has to be also designed. Like I'll take a small example. When you are designing your project, so whenever you are clicking on any button, you write something called as redirect. So when you click on login button, it will be redirecting you to the login page wherein it will ask for your credentials. So for every action, you will always give a response that how that reaction option will move forward for the next step. If it is true, then it will move to the next step. It is false, and it will be there on that only. That is your post back properties. Okay, so basically getting started with API here refers to that. For a human, it is easy for know what are the series of steps and how to go about. But for the system, you have to design the each and every step along with the response that the system has to give them. Okay, so that is your getting started with API in short. Next is mashing up APIs. So when we talk about word mashing, we know that word mashing refers to what? You are creating something by combining elements from two or more sources. So that you mean by mashing up. Okay, taking taking something from different sources, combining them and coming up with single one. So that is your mashing. So when I talk about mashup, this is a technique by which you can say your website or web application will use your data, will use your functionality from two or more sources, and will create a new service, you can say, or you can say a new API. So mashups are always possible when you are going with public APIs, because mashing up means what? You are combining from different sources. So combining different sources can be allowed only when you are using a public APIs. If you are going for private APIs, they are definitely not going to allow you to mash up, and you have to come up with a new service or new API. So when you are thinking of mashing up, you have to always make sure that you have to use public APIs which are readily available. You can combine them and you can come up with one new API. So whenever we talk about mashing up APIs, this is something which is always used by the developers, those who want to have different uh, APIs combined together and as one, and they want to see the working of different APIs. So like you can take an example of your Google Map. So when I talk about Google Map, does it consist of single APIs? The answer is no. There are different APIs. You have your API of your addresses. You have your API of photographs library. Okay, you have your APIs of your, you can say, locations, and then all this is combined together and there is one API created, that is Google Map. So whenever you want to create APIs, you will not always just have a single set of APIs. Okay, you will combine different APIs together and you can make one single system that will have a proper working into it. So that is your mashing up the APIs. So most of the developers usually go for public APIs. The reason is that they have to code less there, because they are simply combining it and there is just one integration code that will combine them all together. So the coding is pretty less if we talk about public APIs. However, in private APIs, you cannot come up with different mashing options. You can mash maybe one or two, not much. But in public APIs, you can have large number of mashing. So that is possible there. And when you are combining it, the code itself get reduced. So most of the developers always go for public APIs because they can explore more there. They can understand the working of different APIs. They can come up with something new. So that is mashing up the APIs. Let's move to the next. Next is your scrapping. So when we talk about scrapping, here we are referring as web scrapping. So when we talk about web scrapping, it is a process of extracting and gathering certain information from multiple sites on the internet to use it for different purpose. Okay, so the reason for collecting this vast amount of data from numerous websites is to just try to get the useful information from them. Okay, however, when we talk about web scrapping, it is just a matter of seconds for humans for us to complete. But when we talk about computers, they take a lot of time and it is a 5-step process which will help you to do the same. So basically all your devices, all your sites on the computer, they save some of the information. Okay, your information is saved there. So when their information is saved there, you are going to gather that information and try to find some useful information from it. So that is why basically it is a web scrapping. Okay, so whenever you're going for web scrapping or if you're using online softwares that will do the task for you, it actually works in 2 methods. Okay, so the 2 methods here is like, the first method is extracting the data with an API. So if you want to get the data from the sites that are saving from your internet, then either you can get the data from that APIs which they are using. Okay, that is a direct method, you can say. Or second, you will extract the data from the web pages. So there are 2 ways where you can get the data for web scrapping. Okay, I'll repeat again. First, the data can be extracted with an API. So whatever API they are using, they automatically save the data. Whatever you had interaction, whatever you have browsed through, any confidential information, if it is there, that is saved. Okay, so either you can extract the data with the APIs that are working there over the sites, or either the second option is you can take the data from web pages, because web pages always ask for the cookies, and if you have turned on them, so that is indirectly they are saving your information. So these are the 2 techniques or 2 ways where you can get the data for scrapping. So when we talk about web scrapping, there is a series of steps. The step number 1 is crawling. So when we talk about crawling, this is the very first step and the word itself tells its meaning. So any web scrapper, okay, at the very first place will crawl to the internet. Crawl here means what it is going to move, you can say. Okay, it is going to move through the internet. Once the URL of the web page is searched, it is mentioned, the software starts the browsing process. Okay, and it will go through each and every content, or it will go to the place where the data can be extracted. Okay, it will either go to the APIs and get the data, or either it will go to the cookies section, or it will move to the different areas of the web pages from where the data is stored. So that is a crawling process, that is moving across different URLs, and then in that URLs it is going to go to the different places on the sites themselves where the data is being saved, to so that it can get the data from there. Okay, so that is just step number 1. Next, step number 2 is scrapping process. Okay, so when I talk about scrapping process, it refers to that whatever data you have received in step number 1, now you're going to identify that information is beneficial to you, which is received from the website or not. If it is beneficial for you, then you will make one copy of that data. If it is not beneficial to you, then you will scrap it, you will eliminate it, you will remove it. Okay, so that is your step number 2, that is scrapping. So in the step number 1, whatever data you have collected from different sites, or with the help of APIs, or with the help of the cookies information which is being saved, now it is time to analyze, or you can say you're going to segregate the data into 2 types, that is useful, not useful. So one which is useful, you are going to save it with 1 copy of it, because 1 copy will be there with step number 2, and the other copy will be proceeded to the next for the steps for the final processing. Okay, and the one which is not useful, which is not beneficial, that will be eliminated. Okay, next is step number 3. So whatever data which was beneficial, or which you think was important for you in step number 2, will be taken into step number 3. So in this extracting process, you are going to have the data into a proper structured format, because the data which is received is not into the file format, which will be accepted at step number 4. So the extracting process here will do what? It will try to convert the data into the format which will be acceptable at step number 4. So the structuring of the data will take place. Any data which is missing will be added up. Any data which is incomplete will be completed. So now you're structuring your data into the proper format with completeness, you can say, which is readily to be accepted at step number 4. Okay, so now at step number 4, you're going to do the final structuring, where you're going to arrange the data in the proper format, which can be easily understandable or presentable to the people who are going to reference that data in the last step. So you're going to convert into the proper formatting. Okay, the format has to be simple, it has to be easily accessible, and the most importantly, it should be easy to understand that whatever steps we have followed from 1 to 4, what is the final data which is being received. Okay, step number 5, that is your last step. So once the formatting is in place, it is in the proper format that is understandable by everyone. Now you're going to export it. Okay, so exporting of the data will allow you to access your data from one end to another, and you can export in different file formats. So that will be your final result, in what file format you want your useful information. Okay, there are different APIs that will help you in the exporting process. It can be in a form of Excel sheet, it can be in a form of CSV. So what is the file format in which you want your data to be exported? Okay, so that you can later on again reuse it for the purpose. Okay, if there is any confidential information, then that can be also exported here, so that you can get the contacts of the people. So you all the useful information which is being gathered from the process 1 to process 4 will be exported into the file format, which is understandable and which can be used for better decision making. Okay, so this was your step number 1 to 5. So web scraping here refers to your web scraping. So when we talk about web scraping with respect to IoT, the scraping of IoT is more, because all the information is being sent at real time. You have sensors, you have actuators which are working round the clock and giving you the information back. So the web scraping is more in IoT. Okay, but however, so far we have not come up with a process, or you can say a software which will do the web scraping for IoT devices. We have web scraping softwares for the devices which are working over internet. Okay, for real time web scraping, we don't have a software yet, but still there are some companies who are coming up with that as well, because in scraping process you always get best of the information. Like most of the useful information is gathered in the scraping process, because here you are browsing through multiple URLs, and from each URL if you get one information also, you can see that how useful it can be. Okay, so when we talk about advantages of scrapping, it will really help you in improvising your business, because you are getting some confidential information that can be help you to make your businesses, you can help to make your contacts, you can help to make your, you can say, your tracking of your logistics, customer preferences, any kind of information which is there will be helpful for you for your business making at the end of the day. Next, we can see that there are many manufacturing companies also. Okay, they'll actually use the web scraping process because they want to get useful information out of it. They want to understand that whatever is the process, what is going on in the market, what are the preferences, what are the choices of the people. So this is something which is information which is gathered with respect to the preferences or with respect to other as well. So it gives you a very useful information, you can say, in the web scraping process. Okay, let's move to the next. Next is your legal issues, or you can say the topic which says is legalities. So when we talk about legalities, you can say something which you are doing legally. Okay, something which you are doing within the norms. You are not breaking the norms. You are following some legal authorities, or you can say something like that. That refers to legalities. Okay, so in short, we can also say that legality can be defined as your doing your task legally. There is something called as act also. Okay, there is an agreement or contract that actually works with the law, and you are following the law procedures or norms. Okay, so when we talk about legalities for IoT devices, this is something a very matter of concern. Okay, because as you all know, before only we have studied this, the privacy security in IoT devices is not there. Okay, because even if you're thinking of privacy in IoT devices, you don't have mechanism which will do the same. So that is something legalization, you can say, or legality is something compromised with respect to your IoT devices. And now we are in a internet connected devices, so everything which we are using always ask for your information, always ask for your data. So you cannot protect your information from the sources or from the applications which are always asking for your data. However, we don't know from their end also, are they securing the data, are they encrypting our data once they reach to them. This all question is just unanswerable from both the ends. We don't know. We are just simply giving our information. How is it being used? What is it is being done as a next step? We really don't know about it. So when we talk about legalities with respect to internet connected smart devices, that is something you can say a threat to your fundamental security, or you can say your privacy. And this is something which is big question to all of us. So when we talk about legal issues, okay, there are three parts into it. Okay, the first is discrimination. So when we talk about discrimination, it refers to that whatever data is collected by your IoT devices can be used for both. It can be used for beneficial purpose, also it can be used for discriminatory purpose, like in the case of your personal wearable fitness tracker, okay, which continuously tracks your detailed information about your movement. There is a biometric data. So this data can be analyzed to determine your fitness level. It estimates your calories burned. It tracks how many hours are left, which will use again to characterize your quality of the sleep and sleeping pattern. So you have a device which is constantly taking information from you. It is studying you, your patterns, your health, everything it is studying. Okay, and this data is something which is saved. This can be used by other third party companies also. Okay, because you don't know that the information where it is being saved, that is used by third party apps or not. So we have no idea about it. So sensors are doing the task. They are taking the information from IoT devices. They are doing everything is happening without your intervention, without you knowing it, that what information is being saved. So this is something which is a primary concern, that we are letting our devices to take everything from us without we knowing them, that what are they going to do, what is their next step. Are they saving the data, are they sharing that information? So we don't know. Our personal information related to health, our sleeping patterns, our behavior at times, all this is already saved into your devices. Okay, so at times when we talk about IoT devices, this actually leads to disturbing your economic discrimination, and that will eventually open the doors to the new patterns of illegal discrimination that can be against your age, race, or gender. Okay, so that is the discrimination here which I have considered as a part of legalities. All the information is being saved with your devices. All they are having each and every information from day one to day end. They have all your information into it. Okay, so this actually helps them to have the data with respect to the different categories. They have data of different ages, they have the different data of races, they have the data of different genders. So you just think there are so many people who are using the wearable devices, and at every point of time they are getting so much of data. Okay, we are simply allowing the devices to take our data, but do we know what are they doing with it? Do we have some legal agreement which says that if you're using these devices, this will track only this information, and if this information is being tracked, it is going to be saved year and year, which is not shared by anything? We don't have any legalities with respect to that. We don't have any agreement over it which is signed between the company from where you are buying the wearable devices. So it is not clear to us. The question is unanswerable to us. Okay, so the first is discrimination. So discrimination here refers to that the devices are saving the patterns of different age groups, different races, and different genders. Second is privacy. Okay, privacy is something which is very much important. Okay, and to be very honest, this is right of every individual to determine how your data is being used. Okay, so when I talk about privacy, everybody, one of us want privacy. So privacy here refers to your encrypting your confidential information, or the information which is just belongs to you. That information should not be shared with everyone. That information should be just between you and just few set of people. That can be just one or two. Okay, not many more than two. Okay, so when we talk about privacy, it is something which is very much important from everybody's point of view. When we talk about IoT devices, the privacy is something which is again a question here, because there are many third party applications, there are many social platforms which are connecting with your IoT, or you can say smart devices, which are collecting your data, which are using your data, and they are exposing also. Okay, most of the time you must have seen there are apps which tell you that they want to work on your behalf, and if we turn them yes, at times they keep posting on your behalf without your intervention. So privacy is again a matter of concern, because we are allowing them to work on our behalf, and that is something which should not be allowed. So when we talk about IoT, it has actually created a problem for us by making the devices smarter, which automatically connect themselves to other devices, transmit your information, share your information without your knowledge that what it is sharing. So this has actually created, you can say, a liability between your data flow requirements, you can say, and between the devices which you are using your data. So most of the IoT devices are very prone to security flaws. The devices are not out at times patchable also. The reason why they are not patchable, because there are anonymous devices which are being connected at a single point of time. Okay, you can track or you can patch one or two, but it is not possible for you to patch millions of devices which we are connecting and which are sharing your information. Okay, so it is not easy to update also, and thus most of the IoT devices end up being exposed to hacking. So this is your problem. That is your second, privacy. The privacy is not there in your IoT devices. Okay. Third is consent. So when I talk about consent, to be very simple, it refers to permission. Okay. So when we talk about consent in IoT, that is again a big question. All of these three are question, no doubt into it, because there are sensors, there are actuators which are working around the clock. They are sensing their information, they are giving back to your information. Okay, so none of them are asking for your consent that whether I should do this or whether I should do that. They are automatically doing everything for you without asking you anything. Okay, it is just that you have taken a device with you which is tracking your information and it is sharing with third party. So when we talk about consent, the consent here refers to that the permissions should be taken from the users, those who are using the devices, before that data is being shared across different platforms. However, when we talk about IoT devices should have some set of consent mechanism into their devices, which is still absent. Okay, because since you are capturing the information in real time, you who are giving the data as a person, as a consumer, as a user, you should be given one right of knowing or asking a permission from you that whether that data has to be taken from you. If it is taken from you, whom it has to be shared, or you are allowing that the data has to not to be shared with anyone. So that consent has to be there, because the when I talk about, there is something called as term of use, right? Term of use means what? It tells you that if you are using any type of, if you're using any type of devices, or if you're using any type of you can say product, then it tells you which takes your concern that here it is going to be used for this point of time, and this is the things which will happen at that place. So that is the concern. So similarly, the term of use should also be there into your IoT devices, and it will let you know at each point of time that this information is being captured and this information is being shared. So you should be, everything should be done with your permission, with your consent, with seeking your permission, so which is not present. So that is a big problem again. Okay, so here we can conclude that with respect to legalities, with respect to legal agreement, there are three issues which we always come across with respect to smart devices. First is discrimination, that refers to collecting the data from different races, classes, or you can say age groups and genders. Second is privacy, which refers to your information which is being taken from these devices is not encrypted form. There is no form of privacy there. Anybody can have an access to your data without you knowing it. Third is consent. Whatever data is being captured from this IoT devices, they are not seeking your permission. The devices are automatically working smarter and they're doing the task for you. Okay, so that is your three, you can say, legal issues. Okay, let's take a quick recap whatever we have done today. So first we have started with the topic that was your what is prototyping online components. So when we talk about prototyping online components, that refers to that you are using different online components like your APIs, your web service APIs, and you're integrating them with your prototypes to make your system responsive, interactive. Next is application program interface. So when we talk about APIs, application program interface are something which help you to do the same. So when we talk about APIs, this is nothing but you can say a set of routines, your protocols that will help you to build your software application. So basically APIs are nothing but the software, they tells you that how your software components will interact with each other. Your most of the APIs are the part of GUI, that is a graphical user interface, that helps you to act as a messenger wherein they will take the request from you. Okay, accordingly they will fulfill your request, and the request which will given back to you is called as API response. So over the screen you can see the diagram. There is something called as API request, which will be taking the request from different clients, which will have different devices. That can be your desktop, that can be your mobile phone, that can be through different messaging apps. Okay, then they are going to give this request to the servers or data source. This data source or servers will give you response back, that is called as API response. So whenever we are giving a response, or you can say a reply, there is something called as web services which are going to work as an intermediary between your client and server. So this web services works on different protocols, you can say, or you can say APIs, that is of XML, JSON, HTTP, SOAP, REST. All of this we are going to look in much in detail in the next topics which are coming ahead. Okay, so for now you just understand that web services act as an intermediary between your client and your server, and that will help you to take the request and give you the response back. Let's move to the next. Next is getting started with API. So getting started with API here is an example of an API. How does it works? So there is a set sequence of steps, you can say. So for the example, if you want to see your friend's photo on Flickr, so these are the series of steps from step 1 to step 6 which you will follow. Okay, for we as a humans, we have a ability to think, we have a ability to type, you have to ability to click. So for us, we nobody has trained us that you have to do this series of step one by one to get your desired output. But when we talk about a computer system, when we talk about your computer software APIs, they are not humans. We need to train them, we need to design them. So for every sequence of step from step 1 to step 6, you have to design them, you have to train them, and tell that if this is the response, sorry, if this is the request, then what will be the response for it. So across step 1 and step 6, it will you have to design your APIs in such a way where you will train them that if this is the request, so what will be the corresponding response for the same. So that is your getting started with API. Next is your mashing up APIs. So when we talk about word mashing up, that is nothing but you are combining the elements from different sources and coming up with one single source. So mashing up is a technique which really helps you to mash up different functionalities or data of websites or web application, and you are combining this together and you are coming up with a new API, or you can say a new service. So whenever you think of mashing up, you can do this easily with your public APIs. You cannot do with private APIs. The point to be noted here is that because public API is something which is freely allowable to you, you can make n number of changes. There is no security over it. So you can explore more that how each of the APIs work individually, and you can come up with one API. Okay. So most of the developers who want to explore themselves, they always go with public APIs, and they end up making APIs which are very visually appealing and which are interactive as well. Because APIs are something which will help you to create your prototypes or to make anything which is visually appealing and responsive in nature. So whenever you're going with mashing up APIs where you are combining multiple APIs together, there will be less of code because you are simply combining together. There will be just an integration code that will help you to integrate all of them and come up as one service. Okay. Private APIs also allow mashup, but there will be limitation of when how much you are going to mash up or how much sources are allowed for combining. But in public API, you can have n number of mashing up with the APIs, so it is easily possible there. Let's move to next. Next was your scrapping. So when we talk about scrapping, here we are referring to web scrapping. So web scrapping are the softwares which will collect, or you can say extract, the information from different sites on the internet. Okay, and the information which is gathered is being cleaned, you can say it is being filtered, and it is reused for better business making or decision making. So there are different softwares which are available which does the web scraping as a process. So whenever they are starting with web scraping, the data which is collected will be collected in two ways. First, the data will be extracted from the APIs which are working over this sites. That is the first step. And the second step, the data can be collected from the web page themselves. So whatever cookies information which is being saved over your web pages, they can directly collect the data from there. So whenever we talk about as a process of web scraping, it is a 5-step process. Okay, wherein the very first step is your crawling. So the crawling is the very first step wherein you're going to crawl each of the URLs, all the sites over the internet, and try to identify the information from where you can get it. Okay, so all the information which is saved into your sites either can be through APIs or either it can be through the help of cookies. So they are going to crawl to these locations and collect the data. So this is the very first step where the data will be extracted, the data will be gathered or collected for the scrapping process. Step number 2, the scrapping will take place. So before the scrapping will take place, you have to segregate the data into two types. One which is beneficial or important, and one which is less important to you. Okay, so one which is important for you, that will be saved in the step number 2. Okay, and the one copy will be saved also. So there will be two copies, one original copy and one the duplicate copy of the beneficial data. And the data which is not beneficial, which is not important to you, will be eliminated in the scrapping process. Step number 3 is extracting. So whatever information which was important, which is received at step number 2, will be extracted into the file format. We are going to structure it into the way that can be acceptable at step number 4. So at step number 4, you're going to do the formatting of the data. So in step number 3, remember you're going to check for the data completeness. If there is any missing data, incomplete data, any data which is not correct, you're going to do all type of operations there. And you're going to combine, you're going to have it into the structured form. Okay. Once the data is in structured form, you're going to do the formatting at step number 4, where your data which is received at step number 3 will be again structured. It will be arranged into a proper form that can be easily understandable, or you can say presentable, and which should be easy for you to do the report generation. At the last step, the data which is received at step number 4, it is going to be exported. It can be shared across different platforms as well. So you're going to export into the file formats which you want to have your data, so that you can go for the decision making. So exporting is again can be done with the help of many APIs. There are many APIs which helps you to do the exporting process. Okay. So web scraping is very important process. It helps you to get useful information that will help you to make your decision making. Next is legal issues or legalities. So when we talk about legalities, that refers to following the legal norms which will belong to some set of agreements, you can say, which is contracted and which will have some laws related to it. Okay. So to be very honest, when we talk about IoT devices or smart devices, there is nothing called as legalities, because we are not following any legal law. We are at each step is being compromised with the legalities. We are compromising our information. So the very first is discrimination. So in short, when I talk about discrimination, it refers to that data which is collected from your IoT devices will always be used by the different third party apps, and they are discriminating the data, or they are dividing the data with respect to 3 categories, that is against the age, race or gender. Second is privacy. Privacy is always the concern in IoT devices, because you are connecting with anonymous devices at single point of time. There is real-time information sharing, real-time information sensing. Okay, so your privacy is always a concern, because we don't know whatever information which our devices are saving in themselves, where it is being used, how it is being shared. So the privacy is unknown to us. We are just simply allowing our devices to be smarter than us, and in return to that, they are harming our personal information. So we don't know about it. Last is the concern. So the concern here refers to that there has to be permission from the user or the consumer whose information these devices are tracking. Usually none of your IoT devices have come up with the concern wherein you know that if these devices are tracking your information, this information is being captured, and this information is being going to be shared with only this third party apps. So there is real time information sharing. So we don't know how many people of how many applications over the web are having our information, because there is no sort of consent there. There is no sort of permission. Okay. If there is some sort of permission where at each time the information which is sent, they'll ask you that this information for the day has been captured. So do you want to share this with this devices, or do you want to share with this application? If they ask you something like that, if they are giving you concern and then you are doing it, then you can say that there is some sort of legalities, because they are taking your permission and then they are proceeding. But this is something which is still missing, and this has to be there into your IoT devices if we are considering IoT as a future in next coming years. So this is something has to be there. Okay, so that's it for the day. In the next lecture we'll continue with the next topic. Okay, thank you everyone.